July 18, 1985. A winter morning with exceptionally clear skies in the Serra da Canastra, located in the southwestern region of Minas Gerais. The temperature ranged between 12 degrees Celsius and 16 degrees Celsius, with moderate winds of 15 kilometers per hour, perfect conditions for hiking among the famous rock formations of the national park, which had been established only 13 years earlier. The region, known for housing the source of the São Francisco River and its impressive waterfalls, including the monumental Cascadanta waterfall with its 186 meters, attracted both tourists and researchers. On this particular morning, Helena Marques Vieira, a 32-year-old psychologist from Belo Horizonte, began what was supposed to be just another day of her solo journey through the park. Helena had planned this trip for months, describing it to colleagues and family as a journey of self-discovery. A graduate of the Federal University of Minas Gerais, she had built a solid reputation in her private clinic, specializing in trauma treatment. Friends described her as methodical, cautious, and extremely organized, traits that seemed to contradict her decision to embark on a challenging trail alone. Helena was always very independent, but also very responsible, said her sister Cecilia Vieira in a statement to the authorities. She wasn't the type to take risks without preparation. She had studied maps, spoken with local guides, and carried the proper equipment. The National Park's records confirmed that Helena signed the visitor's log at 7:45 a.m. on that Thursday, indicating that she planned to hike the Cannon Trail, a moderately difficult route that, under normal conditions, would take about 6 hours to complete. The last confirmed visual record of Helena was made at 9:20 a.m., when she was photographed by another visitor, admiring the view from the Mirante dos Canarios, about 4 kilometers from the trailhead. After that moment, Helena Marques Vieira disappeared without a trace. Her disappearance was only noticed the following day, when she didn't return to the guest house where she was staying in the small town of São Roque de Minas. Maria Conceição Santos, the owner of Posada Serra Azul, reported to the authorities that she found it strange when Helena didn't appear for dinner that night, but she wasn't immediately alarmed. "I thought she had decided to extend her hike and stay at one of the park's shelters. That happens sometimes with tourists who get caught up in the sunset and prefer to spend the night on the heights," Maria explained. "I became really worried when I noticed her bed hadn't been used and her personal belongings, including documents and medications, were still in the room." At 10:15 a.m. on July 19th, Maria Conceição contacted the fire department of Passos, a town 70 kilometers away, and the National Park authorities. A search team was hastily organized, consisting of 3 firefighters, 2 local guides, and 4 park rangers. The first 24 hours of the search focused on the Cannon Trail and adjacent areas, but no sign of Helena was found. On July 20th, the search intensified. Teams from the military police, local volunteers, and search and rescue specialists from Belo Horizonte joined the efforts. Military police helicopters flew over the region, while search dogs were used on the trails. The weather, which had been favorable up until then, began to change with the arrival of a cold front. The temperature dropped to 8 degrees Celsius, and intermittent rains made operations more difficult. The geographical conditions of the Serra da Canastra present a considerable challenge for search operations, explained Lieutenant Roberto Campos, who led the initial operations. "We have rock cliffs, deep canyons, dense vegetation in certain areas, and many caves and fissures where a person could get trapped or hidden." After 5 days of intensive searching, covering an area of approximately 120 square kilometers, no significant trace of Helena was found. The only items recovered were a water bottle with her initials engraved on it, found near a fork in the main trail, and a red scarf that her family identified as hers. located about 600 meters from the main trail, towards a more rugged area known as the Valle dos Canyons. The last communication from Helena had been an entry in her diary dated the night before her disappearance. The page, later found in her room at the guest house, contained a reflection on confronting old fears and seeking answers in the heights. This note, seemingly innocent at first glance, would take on new interpretations as the investigation progressed. If you want to follow more cases like this, that shake society and reveal hidden truths, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any investigations. The voiceover added, the formal investigation into the disappearance of Helena Marks. The Era was opened on July 26, 1985, a week after her disappearance, when authorities reclassified the case from missing person to disappearance under suspicious circumstances. This change occurred after the preliminary analysis of the evidence and interviews with people who had interacted with Helena in the days leading up to her disappearance. Detective Antonio Ferreira, from the Missing Persons Department in Belo Horizonte, took over the case. His first action was to order a thorough search of Helena's room at the guest house. Investigators found her diary, maps of the region with detailed notes, and a sealed envelope addressed to her sister Cecilia with the inscription, "Open only. If I don't return." The content of this letter, initially kept confidential by the authorities, revealed that Helena was investigating reports of unusual experiences in the Valle dos Canyons region. There is something in this place that deeply intrigues me, Helena wrote. The locals talk of strange lights, inexplicable sounds, and a feeling of altered time in certain areas of the park. As a psychologist, I know that collective experiences may have cultural and psychological explanations, but I feel that I need to experience it myself to understand. This revelation opened a new line of investigation. Detective Ferreira and his team began interviewing local residents about these supposed unusual experiences. Many were reluctant to speak, but some reported strange phenomena in the region, especially in an area known as Pedra Ferrada, located about 3 kilometers from the point where Helena's scarf was found. My grandfather used to say that place was a doorway, reported Jose Silveira, a 67-year-old farmer who had lived his whole life in the region. I never quite understood what he meant by that, but we always avoided that area, especially on full moon nights. Curiously, the night before Helena's disappearance was a full moon. Investigators also discovered that Helena had consulted Professor Carlos Eduardo Mendez, a geologist from UFMG, specializing in the rock formations of the Serra, Canastra, 3 weeks before her trip. In his testimony, Professor Mendez revealed that Helena had specifically asked about magnetic anomalies and unusual rock formations in the Valle dos Canyons region. I explained to her that there are indeed some magnetic anomalies in the area, due to the mineral composition of the rocks, mainly quartz and magnetite, said the professor, but nothing that could cause the phenomena she described. I thought she was researching for an academic project. While the investigation moved down this seemingly esoteric path, the forensic team focused on more tangible aspects. The analysis of the water bottle found revealed only Helena's fingerprints. The red scarf, on the other hand, contained, in addition to her prints, traces of a rare orchid, Coryanthes coccinea, which, according to consulted botanists, grew only in very specific and hard-to-reach areas of the park. This discovery led to a new phase of searches, focused on areas where this orchid could be found. Over 2 weeks, specialized teams explored caves, fissures, and rock cliffs using rappelling and spelunking equipment. No further trace of Helena was found. The timeline of Helena's last known movements was meticulously reconstructed. On the morning of her disappearance, she had breakfast at the guest house at 6:30 a.m., briefly chatting with other guests about her plan to hike the Canaan Trail. At 7:15 a.m., she bought cereal bars and dried fruits at the local convenience store. The owner, Sebastião Oliveira, recalled Helena mentioning a special place she wanted to find based on old stories. At 7:45 a.m., she signed into the park. At 9:20 a.m., she was photographed at the Mirante dos Canarios by a couple of tourists from São Paulo. The photo, analyzed later, showed Helena smiling, seemingly calm, wearing a blue backpack, beige hiking pants, and a red long-sleeve shirt, exactly the clothes described in her disappearance. What happened next remains the subject of speculation. The initial theory of an accident, a fall into some rock cliff or ravine, lost ground as intensive searches revealed no body. The possibility of an animal attack was also considered unlikely by experts, given the absence of physical evidence such as blood or torn clothing. The hypothesis of a crime began to gain more attention when investigators discovered that 3 years earlier, another woman had disappeared under similar circumstances in the same region. Luia Mendonça, a 28-year-old biologist, disappeared in May 1982 during a botanical research expedition. Her body was never found, and the case was archived as a missing person in a natural environment. Investigators found no direct connection between Helena and Luia, beyond the geographical coincidence, but the similarity of the cases. Young women, professionals, disappearing in the same region without leaving significant traces raised suspicions. We cannot ignore the possibility that we are dealing with a predator who knows the region well and uses the natural environment to hide his crimes, said Detective Ferreira in an internal report dated September 1985. On the other hand, the total lack of physical evidence made this theory difficult to prove. Another line of investigation explored the possibility of voluntary disappearance. Helena's personal and professional life was thoroughly examined. It was discovered that 2 months before her trip, she had ended a difficult relationship with a colleague and was facing an ethical process with the Regional Psychology Council for allegedly crossing professional boundaries with a patient. However, close friends vehemently dismissed the possibility of voluntary disappearance, describing Helena as someone who faced her problems head-on by October 1985. After 3 months of intensive investigation without conclusive results, the case began to cool. The searches in the park were reduced to sporadic operations, and the team dedicated to the investigation was gradually reassigned to other cases. Helena's family, dissatisfied with the direction of the investigation, hired a private detective, Marco Silveira, a former police officer with experience in missing persons cases. Silveira spent months investigating angles he believed had been neglected by the police. "There is a pattern of silence in the local community that intrigues me," Silveira wrote in his preliminary report. "It's not just reluctance to speak with authorities, which is common in isolated rural communities. It's something deeper, almost like a collective pact." Despite his efforts, Silveira was also unable to make significant progress in the case. His last line of investigation, which was interrupted when the family could no longer afford his fees, involved a local legend about guardians of the mountains, supposedly a group that protected ancient secrets hidden in the mountains. By the end of 1986, Helena Marques Vieira's case was officially classified as unresolved, with the investigation suspended. For her family and close friends, the mystery would continue for much longer than anyone could have imagined. Years passed without news about Helena Marques Vieira's disappearance. The 1980s gave way to the 1990s, and the case gradually disappeared, from the headlines remaining only as a tragic story told by Serra da Canastra tour guides to curious visitors. Cecilia Vieira, Helena's sister, never gave up searching for answers. Every year, on the anniversary of her disappearance, she would travel to Snow Roque de Minas and hike part of the Cannon Trail, leaving flowers at the Mirante dos Canarios, the last place where her sister was certainly seen. In July 1995, during One of these visits, Cecilia met Pedro Oliveira, a young local guide who had started researching disappearances in the region on his own. Pedro, then 25 years old, was the son of one of the park rangers who participated in the original search for Helena. "My father was always intrigued by this case," Pedro told Cecilia. "In his last years, he passed away in 1993. He frequently mentioned that something was wrong with those rocks. I never quite understood what he meant, but he knew the mountains like the back of his hand." This casual conversation sparked a new interest in the case. Pedro and Cecilia began to re-examine the original reports, interview still living witnesses, and explore areas of the mountains that, according to Pedro, many local guides instinctively avoid. In September 1995, their amateur investigations caught the attention of journalist Rafael Monteiro from Mistérios do Brasil magazine, which published an extensive report on the case. The article, titled "The Enigma of the Mountains: The Disappearance No One Wants to Remember," featured interviews with local residents who had never spoken publicly about the case. One of these testimonies, from Donna Aparecida Costa, then 78 years old, brought a surprising revelation. She claimed that on the morning of Helena's disappearance, she had seen the psychologist talking to an unknown man near the entrance to the park. "I never spoke about it before because I was scared," confessed Donna Aparecida. "That man wasn't from here, tall, gray hair, city clothes. They were talking as if they knew each other. When the police came asking, my husband told me to stay quiet, that we shouldn't get involved." This late testimony officially reopened the case in November 1995. The civil police of Minas Gerais, now equipped with new investigative methods and technologies not available a decade earlier, began a complete review of the evidence. A sketch of the man described by Donna Aparecida was widely circulated. In March 1996, a significant breakthrough. Carlos Mendonça, brother of Luia Mendonça, the biologist who disappeared in 1982, recognized the man from the sketch as Dr. Victor Stein, a geologist who had briefly worked with his sister before her disappearance. Authorities discovered that Victor Stein, an Argentine citizen, had worked as a consultant for mining companies in Brazil between 1980 and 1986. His immigration records showed that he had left Brazil permanently in December 1985, 5 months after Helena's disappearance. Attempts to locate him in Argentina revealed that he had passed away in 1994 from a car accident, before authorities could close the case again due to the death of the main suspect. Another discovery kept the investigation active. The analysis of Victor Stein's professional estate, obtained through international cooperation, revealed detailed maps of the Serra da Canastra with specific markings in the Vale dos Canyons region. Even more intriguing, among his belongings was a notebook with notes on the unique properties of certain rock formations and references to time portals, terms similar to those found in Helena's notes. "We are dealing with an extremely complex case," said Delegate Cristina Mendes, who was leading the reopened investigation. "The evidence suggests that both Helena and Luia may have been lured to the region by Stein, possibly as part of some unconventional research he was conducting." In June 1996, specialized teams, using modern ground-penetrating radar equipment, began to explore the areas marked on Stein's maps. They discovered several unmapped caves and a complex system of natural tunnels in an area known as Pedra Furada. Coincidentally, this was the same area mentioned by local residents in their reports of strange phenomena. The exploration of this cave system, extremely dangerous due to the instability of the rock formations, led to the discovery of an abandoned camp approximately 800 meters inside the mountain. The site contained geological research equipment, some of it dated to 1985, and a field journal partially deteriorated by humidity. Forensic analysis confirmed that some of the notes were written in Helena's handwriting. The last legible entry, dated July 19, 1985, 1 day after her official disappearance, read, the measurements confirm, this place defies all known laws of physics. Victor was right about the temporal anomalies. Tomorrow, we will conduct the final test. This shocking discovery suggested that Helena had survived at least 1 day after her official disappearance and was seemingly involved in some sort of scientific experiment with Victor Stein. However, no human remains were found at the camp, and there was no conclusive evidence about what might have happened to her or to Stein during this experiment. Leave a comment if you believe that all the missing deserve to be found and never give up on. The truth. On April 17, 2001, a training expedition by the Horizontes Scout Group from Belo Horizonte, composed of 12 teenagers and 3 adult supervisors, was camping in the Serra da Canastra National Park as part of a survival and navigation activity. On the second day of the expedition, one of the scouts, Gabriel Campos, 15 years old, wandered off from the main group during a navigation exercise and inadvertently discovered a narrow fissure in a rock formation near the area known as Pedra Forada. Driven by the characteristic curiosity of his age, Gabriel decided to explore the opening, which was wide enough to allow a slim person to pass through. Equipped only with a common flashlight, he advanced about 30 meters into a natural tunnel, which, surprisingly, widened into a large underground chamber. What Gabriel found in this chamber would forever change the course of the investigation into Helena Marx Vieira's disappearance. When my flashlight illuminated the back of the cave, I thought I was hallucinating, Gabriel later reported. There was equipment scattered around, like in an improvised laboratory, and something that looked like a camping tent. But what made me run back was seeing a figure sitting against the cave wall. Gabriel, frightened by the discovery, quickly returned to the scouts' camp and reported the incident to the adult leaders. Ricardo Menezes, a firefighter by profession and one of the supervisors, decided to personally check the young scouts' story, initially skeptical about the truth of the account. When he returned from the exploration 2 hours later, Ricardo was visibly shaken. He immediately contacted the authorities through his radio communicator and ordered the scout group to break camp and leave the area. What Ricardo saw in the cave was later described in his official statement as the most disturbing and inexplicable scene of his entire career. Inside the chamber, he found an improvised laboratory with scientific equipment, some modern and others, clearly dated from the 1980s. There were notebooks, geological and magnetic measuring instruments, and several clocks arranged in a circle. In the center of this arrangement was a mummified human figure sitting, propped against the cave wall. The state of preservation was exceptional due to the specific temperature and humidity conditions in the cave. The figure was wearing clothes that exactly matched the ones described in Helena's disappearance: beige hiking pants and a red long-sleeved shirt. Beside the body, a blue backpack contained documents that definitively confirmed the identity. It was Helena Marx Vieira. The most unsettling aspect, however, was not the discovery of the body itself, but its condition. Helena appeared to have died sitting in almost a meditative position, with no apparent signs of trauma or struggle. On her lap rested an open notebook, and in her right hand she still held a pen, as though she had been interrupted in the middle of writing. The last entry in the notebook, dated July 21, 1985, 3 days after her official disappearance, contained an enigmatic observation: Day 3 of the experiment. The temporal distortions are more intense than we predicted. Every minute inside here seems to correspond to hours outside. Victor has not returned from the last exploration of the North Tunnel. The instruments are showing impossible readings. The atomic clock marks 6 days since our entry, but my wristwatch indicates only 72 hours. I'm starting to feel the physical effects Victor described: shortness of breath, disorientation, flashes of memories that are not mine. I don't know if I'll make it out to deliver our findings. If anyone finds these notes, please don't repeat our mistake. Some doors should not be opened. The autopsy performed on Helena's body revealed even more intriguing results. Despite the excellent state of preservation, the forensic pathologists could not precisely determine the cause of death. There were no signs of physical trauma, poisoning, or any identifiable pathology. The official report concluded only that she had died from undetermined natural causes. Even more perplexing was the analysis of her bodily tissues, which revealed accelerated cellular aging, as if Helena's body had aged decades in just a few days. Experts could not explain this phenomenon. The investigation of the underground laboratory revealed other surprising findings. The equipment discovered included instruments for measuring magnetic fields, gravity, and radiation, many of which had been modified in unconventional ways. Later analysis of the notebooks revealed that Helena and Victor Stein believed they had discovered a space-time anomaly within the cave, a point where, according to their theories, time flowed differently compared to the outside world. The notes describe methodical experiments to document these alleged anomalies, explained Dr. Paulo Ribeiro, a physicist at the University of São Paulo, who was invited to analyze the documents. Although the premise may seem fantastical, their approach was surprisingly scientific. They were trying to apply rigorous methods to document something that, according to conventional physics, would be impossible. As for Victor Stein, his body was never found, despite extensive searches in the tunnels adjacent to the main chamber. Helena's notes suggest that he ventured deeper into the cave system and never returned. Interestingly, official records of his death in Argentina in 1994 were reviewed, and it was discovered that the body from the car accident was never formally identified by relatives, only by documents found in the destroyed vehicle. The discovery of Helena's body and the underground laboratory sparked intense speculation within the scientific community and among enthusiasts of unexplained phenomena. Theories ranged from prosaic explanations, such as natural toxic gases causing hallucinations and death, to speculations about dimensional portals and space-time folds. For Helena's family, the discovery brought a long-awaited closure, but also raised new questions. Cecilia Vieira, her sister, expressed mixed feelings during the funeral finally held in May 2001, 16 years after the disappearance. "Part of me is at peace, knowing I can finally give Helena a proper burial," she stated. "But another part will forever be intrigued by what really happened in that cave." Helena was a scientist at heart, even though she was a psychologist by profession. She wouldn't believe in anything without concrete evidence. Whatever she discovered in there was real enough to convince her. The case of Helena Marx Vieira was officially closed as death due to natural causes during an exploration. However, a confidential addendum to the final report, signed by Delegate Cristina Mendes, noted, "There are aspects of this case that remain beyond our current capacity for explanation. I recommend that the specific area of Pedra Furada be permanently closed off to public access, not only for environmental preservation, but due to potential unknown risks." Following this recommendation, in 2002, the administration of the Serra da Canastra National Park designated the Pedra Furada region as an area of integral preservation, completely prohibiting visitor access. Officially, the measure was justified by the presence of endangered endemic species and the fragile geological nature of the terrain. The equipment and documents found in the cave were sent for analysis to the National Institute for Space Research, INP, where they remain classified as material of special scientific interest with restricted access. Gabriel Campos, the young scout whose curiosity led to the discovery that ended a 16-year mystery, pursued a career in geology, inspired by the experience. Today, as a researcher, he continues to study the rock formations of Serra da Canastra, searching for scientific explanations for the phenomena described in Helena and Victor's notes. I don't believe in dimensional portals or time travel, in a fantastical sense, Gabriel said in a recent interview, but I believe there are natural phenomena that we still don't fully understand. Helena and Victor may have stumbled upon something genuinely new to science and paid a high price for their curiosity. The case of Helena Marques Vieira remains one of the most intriguing solved mysteries in Brazil. Although her body was found and the general cause of her death was determined, the exact circumstances and the phenomena described in her notes continued to challenge conventional explanations. For those familiar with the case, Serra da Canastra is never seen in the same way again. Visitors who walk its trails often report a peculiar feeling when passing near the isolated Pedra Furada area, a sensation that local guides, with a mix of respect and fear, simply describe as the whisper of time. If you've watched this far, it's because you care about these cases that mark families forever. Leave a comment saying, "I watched until the end so I can know you and see who truly cares about the search for the truth." Don't forget to like this video and share it with people who also care about real mysteries and the tireless search for the truth, no matter how disturbing it may be. 2 decades have passed since the discovery of Helena Marques Vieira's body in the mysterious cave of Pedra Furada. Her case, initially a common disappearance among the many that occur annually in Brazil's natural areas, has transformed into a cultural phenomenon that transcends the boundaries of criminal or scientific investigation. In 2005, the Institute of Psychology at UFMG, where Helena had graduated, established the Helena Vieira Research Award in Exceptional Psychological Phenomena, granted annually to students who investigate human experiences that are poorly understood by traditional science. The initiative, initially controversial in more conservative academic circles, gained respect over the years, attracting serious researchers interested in the intersection of psychology, neuroscience, and anomalous experiences. Cecilia Vieira, who passed away in 2018, dedicated the last years of her life to founding the Helena Vieira Foundation, a non-governmental organization dedicated to 2 main goals: supporting families of missing persons and funding independent scientific research on the phenomena described in her sister's notes. "My sister was, above all, a scientist at heart," Cecilia declared in her final public speech during the inauguration of the foundation's headquarters in Belo Horizonte. She would not want her name associated with fantastical theories without empirical evidence. What she discovered, whatever it may be, deserves to be studied with scientific rigor, not sensationalism. The Pedra Furada area remains officially closed to the public, with access granted only to authorized researchers under strict security conditions. In 2010, a joint expedition by INPE and the University of São Paulo conducted extensive measurements in the cave where Helena was found, using high-precision equipment to detect any magnetic, gravitational, or radiative anomalies. The results, partially published in the prestigious journal Nature Geoscience, confirmed the presence of an anomalous magnetic field in the cave, significantly stronger than expected given the local mineral composition. Even more intriguing, the researchers documented irregular fluctuations in this field, with patterns that did not correspond to any known geological phenomenon. We are not claiming that we've discovered a temporal anomaly, as suggested in the notes of Vieira and Stein, clarified Dr. Luciana Campos, the geophysicist responsible for the study. But we have identified a genuinely unusual phenomenon worthy of continued investigation. There is something unique happening in that cave from a geophysical standpoint. The case also inspired various cultural productions. In 2008, the feature, film The Physics of Time, loosely based on the case, became an unexpected box office hit in Brazil and was shown at international film festivals. In 2012, the miniseries Anomaly on TV Globo, which reimagined the story in a contemporary context, broke audience records. In literature, the book Whispers of the Serra, the true story of Helena Vieira by Rafael Montero, the same journalist whose report helped reopen the case in 1995, remained on the bestseller list for 38 consecutive weeks after its release in 2007. The book, which combines meticulous journalistic investigation with reflections on the limits of science, was translated into 12 languages. The impact of the case on the local community was also deep and lasting. Snow Roque de Minas, the small town that serves as the gateway to the Serra da Canastra National Park, experienced a significant transformation. Tourism, previously focused solely on the park's natural beauty, gained a new element, the mystery of Helena. The Helena Vieira Museum, inaugurated in 2011 in the center of the town, displays replicas of the equipment found in the cave, copies of the notebooks, and a detailed timeline of the case. It has become a mandatory stop for over 100,000 tourists who visit the region annually. Maria Conceição Santos, the former owner of Posada Serra Azul, where Helena stayed, transformed the establishment into the Enigma Hotel, with themed rooms dedicated to different aspects of the mystery. Room 7, where Helena stayed, is the most requested, often reserved months in advance. People come from all over Brazil and even abroad to stay in this room, says Maria Conceição, now 83. Some are curious, others are serious researchers. And there are also those who believe they might somehow feel what Helena felt. It's a fascinating phenomenon. From a scientific standpoint, perhaps the most significant legacy of the case is the Project Kronos, a multidisciplinary initiative established in 2015 by the National Council for Scientific and Technological Development, CNPq, bringing together physicists, geologists, neuroscientists, and psychologists to formally investigate the phenomena described in the notes of Helena and Victor. What makes this project unique is its genuinely interdisciplinary approach, explains Dr. Carlos Mendes, a theoretical physicist and project coordinator. We are not just measuring magnetic anomalies or analyzing rock formations. We are also studying how such environments can affect human perception of time, cognition, and even physiological processes. Preliminary results from the Kronos project, published in 2020, suggest that prolonged exposure to the anomalous magnetic field of the cave may indeed alter the subjective perception of time in humans. Volunteers who remained in the cave for 6 hours consistently estimated that only 4 to 4.5 hours had passed. Analysis of blood biomarkers from these volunteers also revealed subtle changes that would normally be associated with longer periods of activity. These findings do not confirm a temporal anomaly in the physical sense, clarifies Doctor, but they suggest a real neurobiological effect that could partially explain the experiences described by Helena and others who reported altered sensations of time in the region. For Gabriel Campos, the former scout whose discovery solved the mystery and now a geology professor at UFMG, Helena's case represents something deeper about the nature of science and human exploration. Helena was a scientific outsider, a psychologist investigating geophysical phenomena, and that likely gave her a unique perspective, free from the constraints of conventional thinking, reflects Gabriel. Ironically, that very freedom may have contributed to her death, as she wasn't fully aware of the risks she was facing. There is a powerful lesson there about the balance between scientific curiosity and methodological caution. In 2023, an unexpected event added a new chapter to this already extraordinary story. An elderly Argentine man, identified as Miguel Stein, the nephew of Victor Stein, handed over a sealed package to Brazilian authorities. According to him, his uncle had left the instructions to open it only 30 years after his death. The package contained a detailed diary of Victor's previous explorations in Serra da Canastra, dated from 1980 to 1982, as well as correspondence with Helena that preceded their fateful meeting. These letters reveal that the two had maintained a scientific collaboration for almost a year before Helena's trip to Serra. In one of the most revealing letters, dated May 1985, Victor wrote, "What we have discovered goes beyond simple magnetic anomalies. If my measurements are correct, we are facing what Einstein theoretically described as a closed time-like curve, a point where the space-time fabric is sufficiently distorted to theoretically allow an observer to experience the same moment repeatedly. I'm not suggesting time travel in the sense popularized by fiction, but something much subtler, and perhaps for that reason, much deeper. These new documents, currently under expert analysis, promise to shed more light on the true intentions and discoveries of Helena and Victor. Meanwhile, Serra da Canastra continues to guard its secrets, some of which may be beyond our current understanding. The disappearance and discovery of Helena Marx Vieira is not just a solved police case or a partially explained scientific mystery. It is a powerful reminder of the limits of our knowledge and the courage of those who venture beyond the established boundaries, sometimes paying the ultimate price for their curiosity. As Helena wrote in her personal journal, found in her hotel room the night before her disappearance, the true unknown is not in the distant stars or the depths of the ocean, but in the interstitial spaces of reality that we assume we know so well. It is in the dark corners of the familiar that the greatest mysteries hide. Words that, decades later, continue to echo both in the caves of Serra da Canastra and in the corridors of contemporary science. If you enjoyed this story and want to discover other intriguing and revealing cases, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, activate the notification bell, and share this video. Truth may be elusive, but the search for it deeply connects us as human beings.